Morphological processing. So we are still discussing mind and morphology. The insight that complex words are often stored as such in the lexicon raises the question of how they are processed. There are two ways in which a complex word can be processed: the direct route and the indirect route. When perception of complex word is involved, the direct route means that we do not first parse the complex word but go directly to its representation in the lexicon in order to access its meaning. So according to this, while processing the complex word, we do not analyze it, we do not segregate different units of it or combine its units while producing. Rather, we go directly to the place where this word is in our mental lexicon. The indirect route means that a complex word is parsed, analyzed into constituent. We know that this is prefix, this is base, this is suffix, right? This is the indirect route, constituent, morpheme, and that its meaning is computed after we have gained access to its constituent, morphemes, and their meaning. So according to indirect route, we go directly with to the word and do not parse, do not analyze, do not add or detach its constituents of the word. And in indirect, we first parse the word, we first analyze the words, takes its different constituents, its affixes, and form the meaning on the basis of its affixes. There are data that might be interpreted as showing that language users try to parse words into morphological subconstituents. So, some experiments have suggested that language users try to parse word into morphological subconstituents. So, it refers to indirect method. For instance, when speakers of Dutch are confronted with non-words in the lexical decision task, it takes more time to make the correct decision when that word begins with a syllable that could have been a prefix compared to words where this does not apply. So this was to know that whether we parse or not, this decision was this experiment was made on the Dutch speakers. For example, Dutch words addery bag, afgebeller, and afbegger pact. These were three words. So the first word, addery bag, no potential prefix. It has no prefix. Whereas the second begins with two prefix, f and ge. And the third word, afbegger pact, this was the word which has no potential prefix, begins with three prefix, fb, ge. This is a non-word in their language. Correlating with this difference, the last non-word has longest response latency. So, there was a longer duration to recognize this non-word. The language user tried to strip prefixes from words that are not in their lexicon. So, it took the language user to disaggregate the prefixes which are not generally found them. So there was response latency in this regard. The existence of two roots has led to the assumption of morphological race models. So existence of two roots, indirect root and direct root, has prompted the morphological to assume the morphological race model. In such model, both roots will be used for word recognition, direct and indirect, and compete with each other. If the word is not stored in the lexical memory, the indirect root is the only one that will lead to recognition on the basis of parsing. Obviously, if we come across a new word, we will first parse to reach its meaning, because we did not know that word and that was not stored in the memory. If the word is stored, the direct route will be faster than the indirect route if the stored complex word has a high frequency, that is a level of high activation. Obviously, if we are already familiar with that word, so direct route will be adopted. For a complex word with a low frequency, on the other hand, parsing is the obvious route. So here comes a new situation. The word is a complex and it has a low frequency, that it's not in our active use, it's found in our passive use. So in that case, again, we will be parsing it. Both routes are followed and one of them will turn out to be the fastest depending on the level of activation of the complex word. So if the word is passive, obviously the indirect route will work, we will parse it. But if the word is well stored, the direct route will work because it's stored and we will directly reach to that word. The parsing of complex word is also affected by relative frequency. Obviously, when we parse, if the word is the word is familiar to us, it will affect the relative frequency. The frequency of the complex word compared to that of its base word. Obviously, we recognize base earlier, though the words with the same base are recognized earlier, but the base is more frequent and we will recognize it and it will have a direct path. If the complex word has a lower frequency than the base word, this will make parsing of that complex word easier and more efficient than the direct retrieval. Obviously, we will understand it by parsing. If the inverse situation obtains, opposite situation is there, direct access to the complex word will be most efficient route. For example, let's take desilment will be parsed, then its base desil. Obviously, desilment is a word which has low frequency, so it will be parsed because we are not very familiar with this word form. We are familiar with desil but rarely use desilment. However, compared to desilment, in which we will be parsing using an indirect form, the word government will be accessed as a whole than that of verbal govern, because we use the word complex word government more frequently than the verb of this word, which is govern. Note that the meaning of government is not completely compositional, unlike that of desilment. We directly read this word. The more complex word with a certain affix will be parsed, the more productive the corresponding word formation process. So the more complex word will certainly be parsed and it will make the productive, it will be more productive and it will be related to the word formation process. Parsing the affix will increase its activation level. So when we parse the word, its activation level, because we start recognizing the meaning of the word. The morphological race model can also be used as a model of word production. It helps us to understand why it is irregular form, that irregular form of high frequency that are maintained in a language, whereas low frequency irregular forms disappear more easily. So obviously the words which are irregular words which have a low frequency ultimately disappear from a language. For example, went is a high frequency form. This route will be faster than the indirect route where the past tense form has to be created by rules, resulting in the incorrect goad. Right? So this the frequency, what we have seen so far, the frequency of the word makes the words are ready for use because its activation level is very fast.